Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Nightly Scroll. I'm Haley Carania. I love checking in with all of you right before we go live in the chat. I just like to say hello, and I love to see that everyone is ready to go for the scroll. Haley's Heroes seems to be catching on. I feel like that's the title, like the name of the group that people keep going with, so we'll go with it. Haley's Heroes. We're ready to scroll. I love it. Here's my phone alarm going off telling me that it's ready to do the show, so we're right on time, which is great. Top vaccine scientist Dr. Peter Marks is out at the FDA. He claims that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., our HHS secretary, is peddling misinformation, but I have some very inconvenient receipts for Dr. Marks, so we'll play that. Plus, Jen Circleback Psaki is Monday morning quarterbacking the Democrats' horrible communication strategy in 2024. Too little, too late, but whatever. Plus, I found a shocking video of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in her natural habitat. You won't want to miss that. So much more on Nightly Scroll. First story. Dr. Peter Marks is out at the FDA. So what does that mean? Okay, he is citing that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., our Health and Human Services Secretary, is pushing misinformation and lies. Dr. Peter Marks has been at the FDA for a while, and this is what he said in his letter of resignation. He said, "Over the past 13 years, I have done my best to ensure that we are efficiently and effectively applied the best available science to benefit public health. As you are aware, I was willing to work to address the Secretary's concerns regarding vaccine safety and transparency by hearing from the public and implementing a variety of different public meetings and engagements with the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. However, it has become clear that truth and transparency are not desired by the Secretary, but rather he wishes subservient confirmation of his misinformation and lies." That was just like the second to last paragraph of a 2-page resignation letter where he talked about measles and mumps and all these things. He talked about how he started Operation Warp Speed. So we have Dr. Peter Marks to thank for rushing through a vaccine that was not safe and effective, and it was not tested as long as some of these other vaccines that have been on the market. You can't even really say that the COVID-19 vaccine is a vaccine because it doesn't prevent the spread of COVID-19. So whatever they pushed on us, okay, well, thanks, Dr. Peter Marks, and now he has nothing to do with the FDA anymore. So if you ask me, that's a good thing. But, you know, he talks about RFK Jr.'s misinformation campaign and how he spread lies. But here was Dr. Peter Marks during 2023, still pushing the vaccines that he thinks that you should get during the fall months. So listen to this.
It's one of the best ways to prevent serious illness, hospitalization, and even death. You can be vaccinated against COVID-19, influenza, and RSV, also known as respiratory syncytial virus.
All of them. Just get all of them.
Ask your healthcare provider
all at once
if you're eligible. Vaccines have prevented countless cases of disease and disability and have saved millions of lives. You may feel some soreness at the site where the vaccine is given or have other mild side effects, but those effects should go away within a day or two. Vaccines are safe and serious side effects are rare. Seriously consider getting vaccinated if you're eligible, and talk to your healthcare professional if you have any questions or concerns.
Okay, so important part here of that video was at the end where he said they're safe and effective, you should get them, and adverse reactions are few and far between. Well, that's not really the case. So here he is in May of 2024, under oath, by the way, on Capitol Hill, admitting that the amount of adverse reactions to the COVID-19 vaccine were overwhelming. Listen to this.
As of February 2024, VAERS reports for COVID-19 vaccines total significantly higher than all other vaccines combined since 1990, as reported. This is a surprising figure. Dr. Marks, was the government prepared for such an avalanche of reports to VAERS? And it kind of goes with what we just mentioned. So,
Chair Wenstrup, thank you so much for that question, and I apologize about your name before. It shows when you're nervous, things can happen. But the point is extremely well taken. We tried to be prepared for that, but the avalanche of reports was tremendous, and it again required retasking people on the fly I think and I'll let my CDC colleagues speak to this. We had to hugely staff up and had many meetings working to increase our ability to go through these reports.
Wow, so many reports to VAERS that they needed to call on his colleagues in the CDC. They had all these meetings. It was all hands on deck. That's extremely concerning. But Dr. Peter Marks is extremely concerned with the misinformation and lies of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Maybe Dr. Peter Marks should look inwards and reflect on some of the misinformation that he peddled at the behest of the Biden administration, that the COVID-19 vaccine was safe and effective, all while they couldn't keep up with the amount of adverse reactions being reported. Maybe he should have reconsidered pushing out a vaccine at warp speed. And in his resignation letter, he talked about the measles and how distrust in these vaccines is damaging to public health. Well, Dr. Peter Marks, why do you think Americans distrust the government? Why are they not trusting of vaccines? Ask yourself those questions. Does it have anything to do with the fact that the government forced and coerced people to take something that wasn't safe nor effective, despite what you told them for years? The COVID-19 vaccine was rolled out in 2021, and that video that I played for you came out in 2023. There were a lot of vaccine adverse reactions being reported, so stop blaming RFK Jr. and start taking accountability for your role in the distrust that we're seeing right now. The COVID-19 stuff and the vaccine being pushed, it makes me so angry. And I know that so many people, they took it because not only was the federal government enforcing it, but local governments and state governments were calling on places of employment to fire folks for not getting it. I was extremely lucky at the time that I was working at Newsmax. I was working at Newsmax, and the CEO, he said, I don't care what the New York State government says, you will be protected. No one has to get this. That made me feel comfortable. Not everyone else had that same benefit. So it really is disturbing to hear Dr. Peter Marks resign. There's some back and forth about whether he resigned or maybe he was forced out by RFK Jr. Either way, I'm happy to see him go. I'm not saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to certain things. I'm sure he's a very smart man, but he willingly pushed a vaccine on the American people at warp speed, by the way, without knowing that it was properly tested, knowing that most vaccines go through testing of 10 years plus in some cases. So in less than a year, this vaccine was rushed out to the American people, and the federal government told you, and President Biden told you, that it was going to be a severe winter of illness and death if you didn't get it, and then your employer was telling you that you have to get it or you're going to be fired. This is a crime against humanity. So good riddance to Dr. Peter Marks. I don't care what you do with the rest of your life, but I don't think that he should be near public health. So hopefully we're in a better spot. I hope that we never see something like a vaccine mandate ever again in this country. And to the point of him being concerned about this vaccine hesitancy, I really do think it has more to do what he and Biden's cronies did during COVID-19 than anything else that RFK Jr. has said. Now, we have to talk about Elon Musk. There's a lot of things happening with Elon Musk and Tesla. We've got big updates here. So Elon Musk was in Wisconsin this past weekend. Yesterday, he spoke at a big event campaigning ahead of the hotly contested Wisconsin Supreme Court race. So this is a very important seat. It would essentially flip the balance of the court from liberal to conservative. So we love to see that, but you got to get out and vote. So on Tuesday, if you're in the state of Wisconsin, you've got to get out there and do your part. But Elon Musk was doing his part in Wisconsin. He wanted to personally, and he did, give out 2 checks of $1 million each to 2 voters in Wisconsin who showed up in person to vote. So here's who got these checks. Nicholas Jacobs was one of them. He is the chairman of the Wisconsin Federation of College Republicans. The next one was Ekaterina Diesler. So Ekaterina Diesler got that second $1 million check. Could you imagine? That is so life-changing to get $1 million. So here's Elon Musk. If you're watching the show, you can see Elon Musk wearing a cheese head. He is doing the Wisconsin thing, which is hilarious. I love that he can make fun of himself. So I love to see this. But, people in the lower courts in Wisconsin, they already rejected this legal challenge by Democrat Josh Kaul, who argued that Musk's offer of $1 million each violates a state law, saying that Wisconsin law prohibits offering anything of value to induce anyone to vote. Kaul argued in his filing, Elon Musk did just that, but the 2 lower courts already rejected that legal challenge. So the lucky recipients of the $1 million, I guess that $1 million is theirs. But while Elon Musk was campaigning in Wisconsin, he talked about his efforts with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And here's some of the curious things that he found out about people in Congress. Listen.
A lot of strangely wealthy members of Congress, where I'm trying to connect the dots of how did they become rich while earning, how'd they get 20 million if they're earning 200,000 a year? Nobody can explain that. So something's, we're going to try to figure it out and certainly stop it from happening.
This is good to know. I saw someone in the chat say that Elon Musk is buying votes. You could argue that. However, I think here's his title, the chairman of the Wisconsin Federation of College Republicans was likely going to be voting anyway. But Elon Musk gave these 2 checks to people who are going to be voting in person. Maybe it incentivized people to go out and vote. But I think a lot of these people were probably going to vote anyway. A lot of people are smart. They understand that local elections, and especially a Supreme Court election with the gravitas of this one, where it's a 4-3 liberal court and this seat could flip in favor of the conservatives. I think a lot of people know the importance of this race and they know the importance of getting out to vote. I don't know if they needed the extra boost to go out there and do it. Maybe some did. I mean, that's definitely a nice perk. However, Elon Musk also invited a friend of his, Antonio Gracias, out onto the stage because not only did they find that members of Congress who are supposed to be making $200,000 a year or less, I think it's mostly less, they're making millions of dollars, like, Senator Bernie Sanders. That's one example. He's got multiple houses, which is insane. And you wonder how he's making that, or he's acquiring those properties on the salary that he's given by the government. It is shocking. But he brought out his friend on stage, Antonio Grassis. They saw something else extremely concerning with Social Security numbers. So watch this.
When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, just this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants. Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister all born in Spain. I'm pro-legal immigration. This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America.
Illegal immigrants with Social Security numbers. Illegal immigrants voting in our elections. It makes you think. Now, Elon Musk's beef with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is heating up. You may remember when Governor Walz, and here's Tampon Tim in the corner. If anyone's watching the show, you get to see Tampon Tim bench pressing a tampon, essentially. But you may remember when Governor Tim Walz was hoping that Tesla stock would fall. He gets joy out of it. Listen to this.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out, just telling you.
225 and dropping. Why would Governor Walz want that? Minnesotans have a vested interest in Tesla. There are a lot of Minnesotans, I'm assuming, who have stock in Tesla. And not only that, but the state has some of their Social Security wrapped up in Tesla stock. So I don't know, makes you think. Why do illegal immigrants need Social Security numbers? Why do they need to vote? Why do people in Congress, why are they making so much money? It just doesn't make sense to me. But Elon Musk, he responded to Governor Tim Walz after he was cheering on the stock to fall. So listen to this.
Does that help Tesla? I mean, you had Tim Walz, who's a huge jerk, running around on stage with the Tesla stock price where the stock price had gone in half, and he was overjoyed. What an evil thing to do! What a creep! What a jerk! Like, who derives joy from that? And
here's what Governor Tim Walz responded on X. It just keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He posted this: Elon, I'll make you a deal. I'll stop making fun of your stock when you take your hands off Social Security. Again, I would like everyone to just pay very close attention to all of the people crashing out over Elon Musk rooting out corruption in the government. Pay close attention to those people because they're probably benefiting from some of these, taxpayer-funded groups, and maybe they're getting a cut under the table. I have no idea how the corruption is working, but all of these groups that Doge is chopping, it's making Democrats very, very angry. And they're coming at it like, oh, well, he's cutting Social Security, and he's cutting cancer research, and he's cutting whatever. It's like all of these things that they say that sound really good on paper, but when you look into it, what they're really doing is just rooting out corruption and money that's essentially being laundered through these groups. So it sounds good, or it sounds good for the Democrats to say oh, he's cutting this, but what he's really doing is making it less corrupt. Why does Bernie Sanders own 3 houses on a public servant salary? Why do public servants get to cash in making millions of dollars? Why do they get to live above the law? Why can't they be investigated? Why can't Elon Musk look into these government-funded NGOs or whatever it is that he's looking into, why can't he put that money back into the American taxpayer's pocket? Or why can't we cut our massive debt? Elon Musk is shining a flashlight on corruption, and Democrats are running scared. You don't see anyone on the right saying like, oh no, don't do that, don't cut this, don't cut that. It just makes you think. But the Elon Musk hatred and the attacks on Tesla are not just happening here in the homeland. Just this morning in Rome at 4:30 a.m., a Tesla dealership was lit on fire. 17 Teslas, you can see there, were burned. It's insane. And Italy's Deputy Prime Minister, Matteo Salvini, he expressed support for Elon Musk. He was saying that this is insane. It shouldn't be happening. He said there's too much unjustified hatred against the Tesla car company. He went on to say the season of hate and conflict must come to an end as soon as possible. My solidarity goes out to Elon Musk and all the workers who have been threatened and attacked. You know, it's crazy to think how these protests here in the States have made it all the way globally. Now, on the other side of the pond, there are people in Europe now attacking Tesla dealerships. What vested interest do people in Rome have in taking Elon Musk down? Like, what does this have to do with their everyday life? Why do they want to see Tesla fall? Why do they want to set these cars on fire? And Elon Musk has rightfully called this an act of terrorism. But have no fear, back in the States here, Democrats are really sticking it to Elon. Maybe they've taken a break from lighting them on fire and now they're doing this. That'll show them. It's electric, boogie woogie woogie. Okay, I don't really know what this protest is doing. Is this like a flash mob? I don't know. I mean, what? I've told
solid dance moves, though.
Are they solid? Let's play that again. Let's roll the tape back. I don't know. Let's investigate. I don't think that they're solid dance moves. They look mentally ill.
Better than I can do.
I don't know. Someone in the chat said paid protesters, solidly gay, downtown Disney. These people are nuts. I really learned a hard lesson from that. This is what I'm saying. Someone said, way to ruin the electric slide. Listen, they're trying to stick it to Elon Musk's electric vehicles. But yeah, I would agree that this is not doing much. This is not doing anything. And I've told this story before. I lived in downtown Manhattan for a while. And while I was living at this one apartment downtown, it was the middle of the day. I, at the time, was working on a late night show at Fox, so I had different hours. But, you know, middle of the day, I'm heading to work, and I'm looking at all these people. I'm like, what do all these people do for a living? They can just not dance. I mean, they can just not go to work. They're like out here dancing in the streets and marching in the streets. Like, what do these people do for a living? Again, to the person in the chat who said paid protesters, I'm like, it must be paid. I mean, are these people taking like paid time off from work to go protest? And not only this, the protest that I saw was hundreds of people, and they were all protesting climate change. And then get this, when the protest was over, they left all their trash all over the park. This was all over Battery Park in New York City. So these are the people who claim to care about the planet, but then they trash the planet, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, again, these are the people who hate on Elon Musk. They hate on Elon Musk so much, but they won't acknowledge the good that he did to bring home the astronauts they claim that they weren't stranded in space, but for the sake of this conversation, they were left up there for a really long time, like 9 months. So they did a sit-down interview, an exclusive interview with Bill Hemmer at Fox, and Bill Hemmer is one of the good ones. When I tell you he is the kindest person, I always had just amazing interactions with him. So I will play this, just a clip from the interview that he did with those astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore. Watch this.
But let me comment back on this other. They failed you. Who's they? There are many questions that, as the commander of CFT, I didn't ask. So I'm culpable. I'll admit that to the nation. There's things that I did not ask that I should have asked. I didn't know at the time I needed to ask them, but in hindsight, some of the signals were there. Is Boeing to blame? Are they culpable? Sure. Is NASA to blame? Are they culpable? Sure. Everybody has a piece in this because it did not come off. There were some shortcomings in tests, shortcomings in preparation that we did not foresee. So, yeah, could you point fingers? I don't want to point fingers. I hope nobody wants to point fingers. We don't want to look back and say shame, shame, shame. We want to look forward and say, let's rectify what we've learned and let's make the future even more productive and better. That's the way that I look at it.
So now
I think the way the nation should look at it.
So now the two of you are more than just house guests. Your mission changes.
Yep.
What would you like to say to President Trump? And
You can
Elon
pause
Musk?
that for a second. I don't know if they got media training and they were told to not bash anyone. I know that these astronauts, they care about the mission. They care about our country. They care about research. They take a lot of care when it comes to doing their job, which I appreciate. But they were very careful to kind of point the finger at everyone, but no one at the same time. Like, was it Boeing's fault? Sure. Was it NASA's fault? Sure. I don't know if they were media trained, but it seemed like they didn't want to give Trump too much credit, and they didn't want to blame it on Biden either by saying that they were left up there or stranded. They said multiple times in the interview that they kind of like took the bull by the horns and they said, okay, I guess we're going to be up there longer than 8 days. We'll make the best of it. We'll do research. We'll help out in any way that we can. But I did find that interesting. You could play the rest of that because Bill Hemmer asked them, their message or what they wanted to say to President Trump and Elon Musk. So listen to this.
I respect you. I trust you. You've given me no reason not to trust you, either one of them. What they say, I can't say what they say. I haven't lived that. But I have no reason not to believe anything they say because they've earned my trust. And for that, I am grateful that our national leaders actually are coming in and taking part in our human spaceflight program, which we see is hugely important global significance, and they take an active role. And based on the past and what we see now, with them doing that, it's refreshing. Not just refreshing, it's empowering. It's strengthening for our nation. I think it's a good thing for our nation when the national leaders, especially something that has high visibility, are involved in the process.
Yes,
and I'm grateful for that.
And, I'm just glad that they're involved and they take notice. And, our situation, I think I've mentioned before, maybe wasn't the perfect situation, but allowed a lot of people, including the president and Elon, to look at what's going on the International Space Station, take it very seriously, and understand that our involvement as a country, as a spacefaring nation, is really important throughout the world. And it sets an example, and it shows, our ability to be able to do the hard things, put people in space, operate in space, work in space, and then bring us back. It's important, and I appreciate that them and many more people took notice of it.
Well, I, for one, am grateful that they are back home, and I will say it point blank, period. Thank you to President Donald J. Trump, and thank you to Elon Musk for what you did. If it was not for them, they would not be back here. So I will just come right out and say it. Thank you very much. Now, this next story is so insane. I read it, and we'll get into it. Well, I just want to show you this headline. So Ignacio Cruz Mendoza This is a Mexican national. He was convicted. This was back in the summer. So this was June 11th, 2024. He was convicted in a deadly semi-truck crash in Colorado, and now he has been detained by immigration authorities. So this was a deadly crash on Highway 285, like I said, over the summer. So almost, we're coming up on a year since this incident. And he was arrested and taken into custody. However, now there's been an update and he likely will be deported. Now, the very sad part of this story is that a 64-year-old man, Scott Miller, died in this deadly crash. Someone else was seriously injured, but the truck rolled out onto its side, spilling 47,000 pounds of steel pipes onto the road. So very dangerous situation. And the driver, Cruz Mendoza, he had an eligible commercial license in Mexico, and he did not have a U.S. driver's license. Why is that? Because he's not a citizen. He's an illegal immigrant. Now, the craziest part of this story now is that, actually, I'll ask the chat, how many times do you think this man has been deported? Because it's not once, it's not twice, it's pretty concerning, and he's been going back and forth. Let me just say this in the wise words of Lil Wayne. He's been running back and forth like a soccer team, okay? He's been going back and forth from Mexico, U.S., Mexico, U.S., Mexico, U.S. How many times since 2002? It's been 23 years. Someone said 3, 5, 8, 4, 3, 4, 10, 13. Guys, he's been deported 12 times. 12 times since 2002, okay? Now, he's been deported 12 times, but he's also been back and forth to Mexico 4 more times voluntarily. So basically, self-deported or traveled, I guess you could say, to Mexico. So now, in total, deported 12 times, went back and forth 4 more times. He's been in and out of the country 16 times. What? It's just so insane. So now ICE officers in Denver took him. This was just on Sunday. So he's been in custody, but ICE Denver officers took him into the ICE detention facility, where I can only imagine he knows everyone. If you've been back and forth through this country, you've been basically a professional illegal immigrant for the last 23 years. I would imagine he goes to the ICE detention center and he's like, Carlos, catch you on the flip. I'll be back. He's probably like, okay, you're deporting me. Challenge accepted, morons. He's done this so many times. He probably is signing yearbooks in the detention facility. Hags, have a great summer. See you in the fall. I'll be back. This guy obviously knows what to do and how to game this system. So when I see this headline where he's been deported 12 times and he's set to be deported for a 13th, part of me is great. And then the other part of me is how has the system been this broken for this long? He's been doing this since 2002. You can't even blame Biden's open borders. You can't even blame all Democrat presidents. He's been doing this for so long. And these people are getting more and more bold. Here's a video. This is a TikToker. He's telling people to essentially threaten ICE, not only threaten them with guns. So listen to this.
Shoot at ICE agents on site. That's right. If ICE agents are trying to take you or a loved one, shoot them on site. The way they're pulling up, with masks on, with unmarked vehicles, no badge, no nothing, it could be anybody. It can be gang members. You have every right to shoot at them. This would be the best self-defense case. You're just in fear for your life. You don't know who's behind that unmarked vehicle or who's behind that mask. This is ridiculous. What is our country coming to? Why would you want to be an ICE agent anyway? Do you like separating kids from their parents? Do you like deporting students that are studying? I can understand deporting a gang member or criminals, but innocent people, it's ridiculous. The way these ICE agents are pulling up with masks on, unmarked vehicles, they are pulling up like gang members. They are pulling up like the mafia. You might as well shoot them on sight and have your day in court. Take care, guys. Now I'm out.
Great advice to the illegal immigrants out there. Do not do this. Do not do this. Do not resist arrest and do not shoot ICE agents on sight, as he says. His words, not mine. That is insane. Someone in the chat said, when is his day in court? And yes, in Dan's words, a useful idiot. This is so insane, but DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, she responded to this video on X, and she basically said that this guy, if you do this, you're out of here. She said, quote, if you threaten or attempt to harm a law enforcement officer, we will find you and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. So again, I don't know if these people understand what a digital footprint is, but going on TikTok with your face and telling people to shoot and threaten law enforcement officers when that's illegal is really stupid. But again, these people don't care about the laws in this country because criminals don't care about that kind of thing. But anyway, another TikToker, an illegal immigrant TikToker, you may remember he went viral. This was probably about a year ago at this point, but his name was Lionel Moreno, 26 years old. He encouraged illegals to take over American houses by abusing squatters' rights. He has said on his account, his page, this has been translated, by the way, because he's speaking some other language. He said, I didn't cross the Rio Grande to work like a slave. He said, I came to the U.S. to mark my territory, and he was encouraging other illegal migrants to do the same. The good news here is the White House Rapid Response Team confirmed that Lionel Moreno has now been deported. So goodbye, good riddance. And we bring back this meme from last week. I don't remember her name, but this was a fentanyl dealer who she's also being deported. It's good news. Now, Jen Circleback Psaki, Biden's press secretary, she was on a podcast recently. It was the Bulwark Focus Group podcast. I had never heard of it before, but she was kind of Monday morning quarterbacking the 2024 election, which is just rich. It's funny. Like, they all claim to know that everything was going really badly and that Biden was a horrible candidate and that Kamala Harris wasn't doing the right things, and no one decided to help, which is fine. But I just think it's funny. Like, all of a sudden, now they can say, well, they should have been doing this. Well, Jen Psaki said that the worst media advice is when people ask you a question and you don't give them an answer, which is just, again, crazy coming from her, Circleback Psaki, but listen to what she had to say here.
Answer the question you want to answer. That is the freaking worst advice, especially for this moment in time. Because you know what? Who cares if it's you interviewing a person or me interviewing a person? It doesn't matter to us. People sitting at home, if you ask them or I ask them, hey, what do you think should be done about Elon Musk, right? And their answer is, we're going to build roads and bridges and defend the Affordable Care Act. People at home are like, what in the hell? Right? It's like almost disrespectful to them. So I think some of it is like this overly formal, like, we are going to follow the talking points. Rip the talking points up.
Talking points up.
Decide what you think authentically. You're going to piss people off out there. Guess who pissed people off a lot when I worked for him? Barack Obama. He's not perfect either. I'm not saying that. But like, piss people off. It's fine. What do you actually think? And then talk about it in a way you would talk to your friends from college, your mother-in-law, your sister.
I could agree with
whomever. That's the thing. But I think everybody's capable of doing that. This is the thing of working in Democratic politics for 20 plus years. These people are human. They're great. A lot of them are great human beings who are interesting and funny and quirky and sporty, and they love all sorts of things. It's just like, let the quirky flags fly out there, everybody. We want to see it. And that's, I think, part of it.
Okay, so before we get to the let your quirky flags fly comment from Jen Psaki, here's just a memory lane moment here. We can walk back or circle back, I guess, to her best circle back moments.
Circle back if there's more I can share with you. But I'll circle back with you if there's more to convey. I'll have to just circle back with you. We can circle back with I'm happy to circle back with you. I can circle back. I will have to circle back on that one. That's an excellent question. Oh, such an important question. We will circle back with you, and we'll circle back with you. It's an interesting question, but we'll circle back. I'm happy to circle back, but I'll have to circle back with you on it. It's a good question, but we'll circle back with you on this today. We will certainly circle back with you more directly. I hate to disappoint you, but I will have to circle back with
Wow, good times. It's a far cry from, the Kayleigh McEnany's of the world. And of course, now the current White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who has an answer for everything. And Caroline Leavitt came up right underneath Kayleigh McEnany. She learned from Kayleigh McEnany. She was in the White House press shop during Trump's first term. And Kayleigh McEnany was known for her big binders. And it was a binder full of receipts. Someone in the media would have a question and she would go, whoop, and she would have exactly the answer and she would have a rebuttal to anything that they tried to come up with. That is a press secretary. Meanwhile, Jen Psaki, let's just get back to what she was saying there. She said some of the worst media training advice is to give people an answer an answer that they didn't ask for. You ask a question and you give this indirect, this is so obvious. If you have to even get on a podcast to say this, I don't know what to tell you. Podcast equipment should be more expensive or something. The fact that they're talking about hey, Democrats, next time someone asks you a question, you should actually try answering it. Hello? Duh. And this also reminded me of a recent presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, who anytime she was asked anything, she just talked about how she grew up in a middle-class family. She redirected everything because she'd never had an answer. If you don't have an answer for something, people are going to smell that out and sniff that out so fast. This is just one of the very many reasons why Democrats lost, but it's just funny that it's months later and they're finally coming to. Then she says to let your quirky flags fly, your freak flags, and to show your personality. She's like, if you play sports, tell people that you play sports. Hello, Tim Walz. Tim Walz telling everyone that he was an assistant high school football coach didn't really get him across the finish line either. People don't really care. Yes, have a personality. Yes, be truthful, but people care less about who you are as a person and the vibes that you're putting out. They care about the delivery. Deliver on the promises that you're making. Have a plan. Kamala Harris didn't have any plan whatsoever. She had been running for president for months. She didn't even have a policy page on her website. So if you're running on vibes and letting your quirky flags fly, by all means, keep doing that. She even said, sometimes people do it and it's really cringy. They try to show their personality and it doesn't really hit. But she was encouraging the Democrats to keep doing it. Some examples that I remember are Chuck Schumer grilling. Remember Chuck Schumer grilling and everyone was roasting him. He got ratioed so bad on X. Because everyone's you're grilling that wrong. You don't even know how to grill. Are you even a real man? Elizabeth Warren. I don't even know when this was. It wasn't the last election. It's got to be 2016 or after that. But she was drinking beers in her kitchen. Everyone's just trying to be relatable. And it's they're elitist snobs pretending to be normal. Just, that's what it is. You're talking down to people and you're trying to sound relatable. I'm a normal person too. I drink beers in my kitchen and I grill and all this stuff. It's enough with trying to be authentic. Just be authentic. speaking of authentic, someone who is very authentic and unapologetic is country music star Morgan Wallen. Morgan Wallen was a guest on SNL, Saturday Night Live, this weekend, and he didn't seem to want to stay very long. Listen to this. This is the end of the show here where the credits roll and
Morgan Wallen. I had a wonderful time. Thank you all.
He doesn't want to be there. They got through the first name of the credits, and Morgan Wallen was out. He Irish exited so fast. He did a little salute, hugged the co-host, and got right out of there. And people were saying, oh, this was so rude. I can't believe he did this. He's such a snob. I would imagine, and I don't know what happened behind the scenes at Saturday Night Live, but if I had to guess, some of the liberals who work at Saturday Night Live probably weren't taking too kindly to the fact that Morgan Wallen was invited. I think SNL, they used to be great. During Trump, it got like so tedious. It got so bad. All they did was just like rag on Trump, and the ratings tanked. They weren't even funny anymore. And I think with the return of, they'll have Shane Gillis come back, who used to be on SNL and then he was kicked off. Shane Gillis, very funny. They're kind of like righting their wrongs, if you will. I think sometimes we've seen like a broken clock being right twice a day a little bit with SNL, where they'll have like one segment that's pretty funny and we're like, okay, they have a sense of humor. They can make fun of Biden here and there. And it's nice to see them kind of like come back to reality. That is all because of ratings. The fact that they invited Morgan Wallen, who's been canceled, by the way, for saying the N-word, and he's kind of this like rock star of country music where he's throwing chairs off the roof of Eric Church's bar in Nashville, and he's not really, he's got a mugshot or two. So people don't really, I love Morgan Wallen's music. He's got a new album coming out in May, and I'm so excited. It's got a bunch of songs, like his last album had 33 songs. This one is like on par. So I'm very excited. I love Morgan Wallen. If I had to guess what was happening behind stage, people were not being too kind to him. So then he got out of there real quick, got out of Dodge, and posted this on his Instagram story. He said, what does it say? Get me to God's country. Get me to God's country. This is right after he left the stage in a rush and he said, take me back to Tennessee, which I can appreciate. All right. We're going to get quickly to the scrolling portion of the show, but I've got one more headline for you because it's relevant. All right. Trump and the TikTok sale. Trump says that a deal is going to come before the Saturday deadline. We've seen this deadline before. There was a deadline set for the night before inauguration. TikTok went black. There was a TikTok blackout. We lost it. It was gone. And then the next day, it was reinstated. I think it was gone for about 12 hours. This was in late January. Now, Trump extended the timeline of the deadline, I should say, for the ban to hopefully force a divestment where we could get an American company to have a majority stake in the dealings in the United States. So Trump set the deadline for April 5th to find a non-Chinese buyer, or the U.S. will have TikTok banned on the basis of national security grounds. So Trump had said, we have a lot of potential buyers. There's tremendous interest in TikTok. And he said, I'd like to see TikTok remain alive. I agree, because then I wouldn't be able to show you all the videos that I show you at the end of the show. I said show so many times, but I wouldn't be able to scroll without it. So I personally need it. And I'll go on a rant on this forever. People say that, TikTok is bad and China's bad and all these things. I agree. China's bad. Do I think that children need to be on TikTok? No. Children do not need to be on TikTok. However, that's a parent's job to parent their children. I don't want a law where the government is starting to infringe on the rights of parents. If you don't want your child on TikTok, and I don't think that children should be on there, that's the parent's job, not the government's job. And in terms of national security, we've seen China take over farmland, real estate, higher learning institutions. They have other Chinese-owned apps that Americans use and allow their data to go through, and they give their credit card information and what have you, Temu, Shein, etc. So if you're going to ban TikTok, you've got to ban a lot of other stuff too. So if you're not going to take charge of the China threat in all the other ways that I just listed, then don't start with TikTok, because there are a lot of American business owners that make money on there, and it's a free speech issue. So anyway, Blackstone is discussing joining ByteDance non-existing Chinese shareholders. So apparently Blackstone is one of the front runners, the groups that may bid for TikTok's US business. I'm hoping that it goes through, but I am interested in figuring out what happens if there's this US shareholder. What happens to the app experience? Is the algorithm going to be different? Because the algorithm is really what sets TikTok's success apart from all the other American-owned apps. The American-owned apps really can't hold a flame to TikTok's algorithm. So I'd be interested to know what happens to the user experience here in the United States with the sale to a U.S. shareholder. But we will see at the end of this week what happens. Hopefully we still have videos to scroll through, but in the meantime, we will enjoy. Here is screen time, scrolling time. Let's get into it.